everybody, it's Kira and welcome back to my channel. So today I finally have my reading rush wrap up for you guys. I did really well in the first half of the reading rush and then really poorly in the second half, and you will hear why in a moment. But I really enjoyed my time with the reading rush. I'm really glad at how it's run. Huge congrats to Raylene and Ariel for an amazing readathon. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So let's get into the books that I finished. So the first book I finished was Matilda by Roald Dahl. This was a reread for me, but I hadn't read it in years, and I had forgotten how funny it is. Matilda is a very clever person, and so it was a lot of fun to read about her, even before she gets her powers, just like playing tricks on her family and getting back at them for the mean things that they say. I really like how there's a very good found family aspect, and how it really talks about like your family isn't always people that love you, but there are always people that love you out there. And so it was just a really fun book to read. And then I got to watch the movie with my sister, who had never seen it before or read the book. And the movie is so well done. I really enjoy the movie. It's a really good adaptation too. There's a couple things that it's not perfect obviously, but it's a really good adaptation and just so much fun to watch. So yeah, Matilda completed the challenge of reading a book and then watching the movie adaptation. The next book I read is If You Come Softly by Jacqueline Woodson. This, I didn't really know what it was going into it, but it is a YA contemporary romance, and it's about two high school sophomores who bump into each other in the hallway and fall in love. So it's very insta-lovey, but that's kind of the point in a way. But it very much reminded me of The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon because of the magnitude of the topics that it talks about. So it's not just about teenagers falling in love, it's about, this one especially is very much about race, because Jeremiah is black and Ellie is white and Jewish. And so it was a very interesting contrast to read about, especially for like, it was written a while ago, but it still very much feels very contemporary, which is really cool. Something I thought was really interesting is that, it's told from alternating point of views from Ellie and Jeremiah, but Ellie's point of views are always in first person and Jeremiah's are always in third person, which I thought was so interesting because I don't think I've read a book like that before, where it not only switches point of views, but also like point of views. So it was really cool to read about. The thing that got me the most about this book though was just a reminder that teenagers deal with things like racism. It's very easy for me, being a white female, to not have to worry about it and not have to deal with the inherent racism that is in America. And so it really like opened my eyes again to realizing and remembering that like it's not something that adults only face, like teenagers and children often and do face these really harsh and unfair treatment because of the color of their skin. And so it was really interesting like reading about, especially because Jeremiah comes from like a well-off family, because his father is an actor and his mother is a well-known writer, and so it was interesting hearing his side of the story of falling in love with this white girl and being kind of worried that she would judge him for his parents or his wealth, but he wasn't ever worried about her judging him by the color of his skin, but what other people would think about it. And so it was just a really good reminder that like this is a real thing that real people deal with, and not just adults but teenagers too. So the ending of the book didn't like make me cry because I hadn't quite realized what happened, but I think it was a really fitting ending in a way. It's very realistic, which is not good. Very unfortunate, and I don't even know what to say, but I appreciated the ending. It was very sad. So I enjoyed my time reading this book. I don't think I'm going to reread it ever, but I really enjoyed it and I'm glad that I read it. And this fulfilled the challenge of read a book with purple on the cover. Then I read What World Is Left by Monique Pollack. This is a historical fiction about a Jewish girl growing up in Holland whose father is an artist, and because of some political drawings that he did, their family gets taken to a concentration camp. And they get taken to one in Czechoslovakia. And so it's one of the ones that actually was like fixed up. So when I think it was the Dutch Red Cross, the Holland Red Cross, I don't remember exactly which one, but one of the Red Crosses was coming to see the conditions of the camps, and so they like fixed it up and made everything look like it was very nice place to live, even though we know now that it was not. And so it was an interesting exploration as to what is worth doing for your family. And it was also interesting because their family wasn't really practicing Jewish. They didn't really practice their Jewish beliefs. They just happened to be Jewish. And so she also was from like a better off family. So there were a lot of times where you were reminded that this is a 14-year-old who is used to having things like handed to her, having to go through these harsh realities. And it's historical fiction, but a lot of the story is based on the author's mother's own story and what happened to her. So it was very difficult to read about, as it always is with those kinds of books, but it was really good at the same time, and I very much enjoyed reading about it and learning about it more, even though it's not an enjoyable subject. And this fulfilled the challenge of read a book in the same spot because I read the book all while sitting in the car. Next up, I read Sevate by Celia Reese. This, I had no idea what it was going into it either. So it takes place in England in like the 1790s, and it's about this girl named Sevate, and she starts off the book by becoming kind of a Robin Hood figure in that she like robs this carriage that's going by, and she does it to figure out this suitor of hers, if he actually is in love with her or not. So it sounds very like, I don't know, childish almost in a way, but she decides that she really likes living this life of thrill and decides she's going to continue robbing carriages and dressing up like a boy to do so. But she then quickly gets pulled into this political intrigue plot of her brother and father have now gone missing, and you know, being a revolutionary in that time is very dangerous. And so she quickly gets, like I said, gets pulled into this like political intrigue plot of not knowing who your friends and enemies are and trying to find her brother and father. I didn't like this one as much, but it was still an interesting read. I'm very glad that it's a standalone because now I don't have to worry about trying to finish the other books in the series because it was just the one. And this fulfilled the challenge of read a book that you meant to read last year because I'd had it for forever and finally managed to get around to reading it. And then we come to the reason that I slagged off in the last couple days of the readathon. So I started this book, which is 2 years, 8 months, and 28 nights by Salman Rushdie. So this was for the challenge of read a book with more than 5 words in the title, but I did not finish it. I'm still only like a little less than halfway through it. So it's a play on the Arabian Nights, like 1001 Nights tale. So but it's kind of, so there's elements of fantasy, there definitely is, because there's lots of jinn and magic in here. But it's also takes place in the contemporary world, and so basically like these people who are all descended from this jinn start having powers. But it switched point of view a lot, and it was just very hard to read. It's also a little bit of a taller book, and so the pages are longer, so that didn't help. And it was very philosophical and just lots of questions that I had, and it it just really didn't make sense to me. So I would like to finish this eventually, but I had to put this down because I just didn't want to read at all while I was reading this. And so I think I read 134 pages of this during the readathon, but I was not into it. I wasn't enjoying it. It's also an adult book, and so I think if it had been YA, it would have, like, because of being YA, it would have moved the plot along a little bit better and faster, and so I would have, like, enjoyed it a little bit more. Like I said, I'm going to finish this at some point, but I just got stuck reading this, as well as traveling to Oxford, which is where I am now. That didn't help at all with trying to read 7 books in a week. So yeah, that was that one. So I actually lost about like 6 hours worth of time between Friday and Saturday, which I don't think actually impacted me because I was stuck on that book. But traveling is always really hard. So once I got to Sunday, I just really needed some alone time. So I explored for a little bit by myself in Oxford, and then I just came back and I decided I was just going to pick up one of my other books. So then I read My Oxford Year by Julia Whelan. This is about a young woman named Ella, and she comes to Oxford for a, what is it called? It's a really fancy scholarship that I'm blanking on. The Rhodes Scholar. She comes to Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar, which is like super fancy and high profile. And she has a budding political life back home, but she decides she's going to take some months off and do this cool study abroad trip, basically. And then she falls in love with her tutor. So it's a romance between her and her tutor. I loved it because I just flew through it. It was so much fun to read about someone who was just coming to Oxford as somebody who had just come to Oxford. There were a lot of places where she was pointing out that I was like, oh, I know where that is, or oh, I'm going there later in my trip, you know. And so it was just a lot of fun reading it. There were some heavier moments in the book to do with her tutor's life, but I just really enjoyed flying through this book. And this fulfilled the challenge of read an author's first book. So yeah, now I will put my stats up here on the screen, but I read a total of 1,661 pages and 5 books, which is pretty good. And as you can see, it kind of like, my thing definitely goes down for a little bit there and then shoots back up because I finished the whole book in one day on Sunday. But then now I will show you my badges. So I managed to complete quite a lot of badges. My 5-star book was Matilda, just because it's just such a classic and such a good book. I really appreciated doing the Instagram live read-in. That was really fun. I joined with Ariel and Raylene for the Instagram read-in. And so that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. And Twitter sprints were always great. I didn't make quite as many videos as I was hoping to make, but my week was busy, so I couldn't really do it. And I also did some of the Instagram challenges. So that is it for my wrap up for the Reading Rush. I'll leave my Instagram along with my other social media in the description below if you would like to see the pictures that I posted for the Reading Rush challenges. I've also posted a couple of things from my time here in Oxford so far, so if you want to see those, feel free to check them out in the description below. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!